their behaviors are uh, visually, how the visual feedback of the character is paid off to the player. Um, just something to think about.
Okay, I mean that's stuff I've kind of been thinking about forever, but now it's just like in a little tiny emblematic tiny speck of the demo universe. Um, okay.
Uh, the other thing that I want to do is try and figure out what our adjectives are gonna be, or not adjective, like our
Or
descriptors, our
verbs.
verbs, are. You know how Sunless Sea can be described as spooky and spare and isolated or
This is a
isolating.
spare game.
Yeah, but you can
You want
grab a whole bunch of things to describe it, and it's united in its design by certain descriptors. They make decisions that reinforce how isolated the player feels.
Yeah,
And
but I don't know if that's how Son of C was made, or if that's how we now view Son of C because of that's how people read Son of C after it was made, kind of thing.
well, when I was reading their post mortem, they were describing that their design process was that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were talking about how they made decisions based on what they wanted to impart to the player, or like keeping things consistent, having an internal consistency. And I don't know if we have one of those yet for a game. We used to talk a lot about all of the things we wanted to include and like the grand scale that we wanted to achieve. And maybe largely I was talking about that. But I think now maybe it's more important, since we are cutting things and getting the scope of it to be smaller, um, to really hone in on which words we want to use or want people to think when they're playing our game, because it'll make it
Hmm.
much easier for us to achieve internal consistency in terms of characterization, progression, um, overall world feel, which is, I think the valley image is maybe a good place to start, now that we have something that feels like it's part of our world for sure. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I still have questions about what the game is, what we want the game to be in its final form, and like what we're gonna be asking for Kickstarter, and like what things are gone for good, and like how big content complete game looks now.
I
Like
think,
I'm
yeah,
still unsure what that looks like.
but I don't think
Because
that that precludes us from choosing. You know,
well,
like
it might depending on like some of those things are bigger than others. You know.
that's yes, yeah. I mean, certainly, like which races we choose to include can change the tone of the game depending on which race you're playing. Maybe the tone of the game shifts, or like the mood that you're feeling while you're going through certain areas will change. But I don't think we want something that feels disconnected. You know, like even if you're playing as a different race than the humans, you want it to still feel like it's a part of the same world. So what are those underlying structures that players are connecting to? That's something that I'd like to try and at least start chipping away at, coming to some conclusion about whether we want this game to be a game that reads like a book of fables, if it's got like a magical realism vibe to it, or if it's more of like, if I think we can rule out that it's not noir and it's not a western, but starting to rule out what it's not could help us come closer to what it's going to be.
Okay. Um, is there more stuff on the list, are those the things?
I was just coming into thinking about those, but I guess we could start a list up. And to Infinity and Beyond, thank you for the feedback on that. I think it would be pretty easy. Yeah. Well, it's not noir. It's not a
Oh
western.
no, I meant like
Oh,
is that the list of things you want to talk about, or
oh, completely.
yeah.
I think there's more. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Um, No, pretty much I spent most of today concepting things that made sense with all the stuff that we have already written and determined, and figuring out a way or an excuse or a justification for certain things to not be there.
Hmm.
Because like we're writing in a very limited place, and most of these people are people who travel with other people, so there's got to be reasons why they're not there, you know. Um, so yeah, so and now I think I probably have a pretty good spot to write a full script. So I'm gonna probably write a first draft thing tomorrow.
Okay.
Probably. I don't know. I'm still messing with the main story idea a bit, but like all the technical stuff is out of the way.
Okay. Um, yeah. So I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about was when. Well, I wanted to set up a meeting for to work on the stump speech, but I also wanted to set up a meeting to start work on um, to begin thinking about how we're going to be representing ourselves on Kickstarter, which is kind of why I wanted to get into like what our game isn't going to be
Okay.
and consistency of tone, because a lot of the Kickstarters come on like a lot of the successful ones that I've looked at least in our spreadsheet, which is right above this. Star Mazer, for instance, uh, on its page, actually, we'll go to the page and you can just look at it through my screen. On its page, it says a retro sexy point and click adventure shoot 'em up in space, which is a lot of words, but like you can see all of those aspects in the portrait. And as you go further down the page, that sort of works as a legend for how to interpret the project. Um, you've got, and a lot of these projects that do well on Kickstarter tend to have very professional looking art assets um, that show off the visuals of the game. Uh, and Star Mazer does a great job. Let's see, I want to find the one specific scene that I thought was great. As you go down, of just expanding on that initial kind of bubble of thought. What does the expansion of retro sexy point and click shoot 'em up in space look like? And I think it looks a lot like that.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like all of it, right?
Sure,
I
yeah,
mean,
it
yeah.
looks it looks like all of it, but like that's the fantasy of it, and they nailed the fantasy of the universe that they were trying to that they first kind of set out as like a thought bubble for you to use to interpret their page, but then paid off in art asset after art asset
Yeah.
after animatic.
Yeah,
And
most Kickstarters have like a montage feel where there's a series of pictures you can scroll through and go, "Oh, okay, I get it," kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a better idea of like what everything is or what it's going to feel like to play the game. And I don't have that in my mind for what uh, we don't even have like our final name really, but
Nope.
uh, that's something that I'll be working on shortly, trying to draft up names. Anyway, and if you want to do the same, feel free. Uh,
Okay.
anyway, the this thing right here, the choosing of the words and the visuals to fit is something that I don't want to wait until a month before to start coming into knowing. I think the sooner that we get on that train of knowing exactly what our game, how to represent our game to other people, the sooner we're going to know which direction to take in terms of like creative decisions on towns following Valley and plot progressions and game feel. Um, so I'm going to start working on Project Kingdom taglines that are about this short.
Okay.
Um, and if you could start thinking about it in the time that you're not rewriting the whole script, Uh,
I'm not rewriting the whole
okay. In
script.
the time that you
I'm making a new one,
okay,
but
yeah,
that would be way harder if I was rewriting the whole script into something. I don't know why you think that's a better idea, or do you? I don't know,
no,
but
no, I was just joking
okay.
around. Like,
Oh,
if
okay.
you could make this tiny little tagline when you're not completely buried under your work.
Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like one of the reasons why we don't have the words for it is because we are still futzing around with our style. Like, there's tons of different visual elements that we haven't totally laid a finalized feeling on, and like, I feel like our UI is a meta, like, the meta narrative of your game is like in UI and game descriptions and stuff like that. So that has a voice that's often hand in hand or sometimes combating with the voice inside your game, which might be totally different, right? So
That's kind of why I want to like
like
start.
where
Yeah.
like I kind of know like my side where the voice is, and I kind of know what Cody's art style voice is, but I can't say for a fact that I know like how game mechanics uh, glue themselves into that collective musical thing that they're making. I think that's still the fuzziest part of it. Like I know our game mechanics, they don't have a visual aspect to them just yet.
Yeah. All that I'm suggesting is that like instead of waiting for our three of us to meet somewhere, that
Yeah.
we plot out a path like to get to the same point. Because I don't want to meander anymore. I kind of want to choose and decide, since we're already at a moment where we're cutting everything else and like clipping stuff down and coming to a consensus on what the game's going to be and how we're going to have to represent it. I think that having a united creative vision over the next 2 months will be more beneficial than finding our united creative vision a month and a half from now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Um, okay. Well, that's more or less what I had on my mind.
Let's try stump speech first.
Okay. All right.
I think. Wait, maybe no, no. I feel like let's do this thing first. I
The
feel like if we have words to describe what our game is, we'll better be able to
do the stump
understand
speech.
what it is that's different about our game, or at least understand what our game is, right?
Right.
So yeah, let's do this. Let's start with this thing, which I guess is a game description,
It's a game
a
description.
game bio kind of thing. Yeah,
I can. What I could do
game identity.
is grab control. Do you want the document, the Kickstarter research document?
Uh, yeah, yes. I mean, I think I have a link somewhere, but send me the link because
Sure.
I don't know where it is.
JJ, if you have any thoughts on any of this and how you would go about representing it, please let me know.
I I am not a word man.
Okay.
I am a picture man.
Word man. Ah.
I
Using
got your
shadows.
reference.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm, ag- I'm acknowledging your reference that you made,
Appreciate it. Um,
but no reference shall die in silence. That's what I say.
150,000, 185, 332. All right, I'll go do that later. Uh, so the tagline for Elysian Shadows that people responded to was redefining the old school 16-bit RPG, or that's what they put first, and I think that's the most important part. Just like how Star Mazer said, retro sexy. Like that was a lot of these things are getting off on like nostalgia, and they put the
Yeah.
nostalgia out first, and we're doing the same thing. I just don't know like where we want to approach that.
I mean, I don't actually think we're doing the same thing. I think there's something nostalgic about our game design, but like they have clear visual elements of nostalgia with 8-bit and 16-bit, whereas we're doing
Different.
like a speed paint 2D looking thing that
Yeah.
feels a little bit more 2000s, I would say.
So like what? All right. So I'm gonna go look at Cody's art then,
Okay.
and that'll maybe give us a direction.
I mean, there's something a little maybe like 32 bits. Like, there's like something maybe crossover from 16-bit if you want to like look at Monkey Island art, but like Monkey Island art is almost, if you're looking like at the later Monkey Islands, um, like it doesn't really deserve to be called bit mapping or anything like that anymore.
Yeah.
Or I mean, it does because I guess someone probably bit mapped some of it, but it's pretty much out of the era of bit art.
When I look at Cody's stuff, I think about Eastern animation a lot, like Toriyama and Miyazaki. I think about the JRPGs that I used to play. And you have like clear, the Lost Rider is, a throwback to the Black Mage aesthetic. I think all of our stuff is like is somewhat inspired there, even though we're pulling mostly through from Western mythological heritage for our fantasy environment. We're definitely pulling from Eastern to come into like our visual sensibility.
Yeah, I don't know. It like, yeah, to me, I'm just used to hearing when indie say retro or indie or 16-bit. It's because they've chosen one like a genre that's specifically sticks to a later age. Like point and click is now having uh, like a revolution or a renaissance, I guess. Like people
Yeah,
thought that was going to die, so it's still considered retro in some weird way.
yeah.
And then so is 16-bit, right?
Anything that's been
Versus
abandoned.
RPGs, not like something that, uh, huh?
Sorry, our audios are mismatched. I think by like a second or two.
Oh,
Um, yeah, no, I agree. I don't think we need to grab any of like that terminology for our aesthetic, but like certainly our heritage is clear. It's going to be clear visually, and it's going to be clear systematically. I don't know if it's clear from like a narrative context necessarily, or if it will be to people who are playing or sorry are looking through the Kickstarter window. You know, maybe with our writing we can
yeah.
kind of call back to that. But to me, this game feels a lot like my childhood looked to me. Not exactly like it looked, but it's got those elements. All of this stuff looks like storybook. They look like storybook people.
Yeah. They're still video game characters. I don't, I don't think they look, I don't think they look not like video game characters and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have the same feeling when I look at them. Like, I have the feeling that they feel like video game characters, but they have the iconic sense of a video game character that could be from any era because these archetypes have been around forever for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So like they don't feel specifically retro in the way that we've rendered them. Um, I do think there's something nostalgic about our game design. Like I said, like I think there's something like we're paying homage to RPG design in a weird way, but we're like definitely also taking a page from newer games, like the whole like blending it with a choose your own adventure and things change. Fire Emblem-y feel is a new thing. It's not an old thing. Not really.
So are we a blend of the
There's
two?
something D&D esque about it, maybe, but
Yeah, I think a
I
little bit.
feel like I feel like that maybe is uh, both true and not true at the same time, because that's D&D's. You know, you can do everything in D&D.
Um, shit. I mean, we're looking for words like storybook that give off like a feeling, you know, that grab a
Yeah,
person and give them some sort of like essentially we're handing them a map for looking through our Kickstarter.
I think maybe there's a certain like I'm thinking about story words. Like I don't think legend makes sense, but maybe journey makes sense.
Journey.
I think
Yeah.
there's something adventure about our story and our feel.
Maybe it's like a well, one of the things we keep coming back to is that like the or that I keep coming back to is that the art style is like sort of um I always have the word benign in my head, but that's not true. The art style is like our the art style is younger than our content is going to be, which I think is good because it's gonna.
Would you say you broke up a little at the end?
I think our art style is younger than our content is going to be. It appeals younger. Not
Oh,
necessarily that it doesn't appeal older as well, but that like it tends to fit like a younger demographic, or people who are younger will be able to respond to our characters. I could see our characters being in something designed for 8 to 15-year-olds, something like that, or maybe even younger than that. But I don't think that our writing is going to be like that. So maybe pointing to the fact that like it has a storybook aesthetic, but the journey is bleak would be a good way of getting at the sort of feeling we're going for.
hmm.
I think our art style is like the wolf in sheep's clothing. Uh, what what's the word for those?
A conceit.
Yeah, yeah, basically like if our the fact that our visuals are somewhat mismatched with our content is something that I think gives us a strong edge because it'll allow us to subvert the expectations of our players coming in. Hinting that that's one of our goals might be a good way of giving people who are coming into the Kickstarter like a better idea of what our game is about. Since I think our game is about subverting expectations, generic expectations, narrative expectations.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I feel like that. Like, there's two different ways about it. Like, yeah, if we were going to avoid like being like we're another retro indie thing, then the old like the switch from that is we're our own indie thing. Like we're a unique, new, trying to do something different indie thing.
Yeah,
Um,
but I
but I
think
don't
yeah,
like. I think yeah, I feel like the first pitfall I think of like of the whole thing would be to sound that like we're the Mark Millar Dark Batman version of indie or something like that.
right. We're trying to
We're the gritty
reposition.
RPG.
We're trying to reposition ourselves, but not like sell ourselves as being different than what we aim to be. And we're definitely not trying to also say our game is better. We're just trying to differentiate ourselves.
Yeah.
the The fact that the game, the thing I wanted for the game's designed to sell was that RPGs can grow with you. That was like the core conceit behind what I was working on in terms of design. Something that wasn't playing down to the younger market, but was instead playing up to the the people who came up playing these games, but now aren't able to play them because they don't connect in the same way with it.
Yeah, I
But
remember that.
I don't know how to say that without saying like
I don't I feel like that's forcing someone to feel a thing. I feel like we need to like it's either got to be in the subtext of whatever the message is,
subtext. That's
or
what
it's
I'm
got to
looking
be
for.
something they get out of playing the game themselves. Because not everyone's going to have the same read of the game as the people who are making the game, you know?
Right. This is our opportunity to like to hit them with our propaganda sub frequencies. You know,
Yes,
like
to control their brains.
right to control their consumer brain and say, buy it, please, donate money. And that's what these people are doing. The next generation of 2D RPG, redefining the old school 16-bit RPG. They've
Yeah,
positioned
basically.
themselves as being the successor to that lineage. They've done it in a way that has no subtext at all, because they mostly focus on the technical part. They're fusing pixel art with 3D environments, physics, and positional audio. They're not giving you anything about the narrative or the gameplay. They're giving you mostly information about the visuals. I don't think we want to do that. what I liked about Star Mazer was
Okay.
that, yeah, they don't they don't do that.
They they just have a quick tag.
Yeah, retro sexy.
Yeah. Um. So something qualitative.
Yeah, something qualitative. Maybe we just what I'm gonna do is grab all of their taglines, and then we can study taglines. And thank you, Dirterzer. I'll add those to the list as soon as we're done brainstorming this long, drawn out brainstorm thing. Oh god, this is like 17-point font. Okay, that's one. Son of Nor. Son of Nor was actually pretty cool. I went and watched the YouTube stuff for it. They've got actual terraforming.
That's cool.
Yeah, your force abilities are legitimately interesting force abilities, and they have PvP and co-op. Even though the game doesn't look great, it seems like it could be a lot of fun.
Hmm.
8.
Video game description.
It seems like all of these fit into one line of 8-point font text, so that's what we'll be aiming to do with ours. We won't be taking any cues from Vanguard V because their Kickstarter failed. Although if you want to look at what their tagline says, we could.
Whatever. I don't know.
Control C. Control V. Shoot them up in space. This one's short.
So I think all of them at least define where they're putting themselves in the genre in some way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they have like
So
a
a word RPG or like choose your own adventure or something like whatever our basic like mechanical design is has to be uh, boiled down into like 2 or 3 words, and then there should be some words around those words.
storybook RPG with with the bite of a novel. Yeah, it had so much potential, but they tried to do too much. It'll shoot you in the toenail with its powers of emotion.
It's not a very effective place to shoot.
No, but it really hurts.
Oh yeah, but being shot hurts.
Make a huge game, so ended up pretty basic. Interesting. Blah, 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 blah. A storybook RPG. I don't know. A storybook is like so, but these like the words they use are kind of. I don't want to like get into my purple prose brain